I actually have several things that I actually want to say. One, the first thing is when you talked about not grouping people more than 3 to a group, that reminds me of what they used to say about African Americans hanging in a group. And to me, did not just sit right with me.
Well, that's what comes from the experts on homelessness. Well,
that's what the experts said years ago about black people being in a group also.
And we are aware, I assume, that these fines, the way that this would be policed, the way this would be enforced, is going to be disproportionately affecting black and brown people.
I'm not sure about that. I'm really not.
That's all I got.
The majority of people on the steps of the city county building are white. The folks who are at State and Carroll and Mifflin, majority are African American. But one of the points about that site is that it's very uncertain as to how many of them are actually homeless.
I think it seems like when you say the tickets will be dropped as soon as they get in permanent housing, that is that simple. It's not that simple. There are not enough affordable housing for people to get in. And we already know I'm on a task force for alternatives to incarceration, that a lot of these incentives are used at other people's discrepancy, which doesn't seem to fare equally across the board. So I am concerned that there will be more disparities in terms of people of color, not just having access to services, getting into housing and getting those alternatives. And you suggested that, oh, these fines will go away. It's funny because when the young gifted and blacks and those students were getting arrested for laying in the streets and refusing to move, that was my suggestion to the chief, to remove them. Once he removed them to Goodman Center, why did they have to get those tickets? Why didn't they just do away with the tickets? And I got a different response than what you're here saying right now. So if it can be an alternative, then it could have been an alternative for those black students that were arrested in the streets. And so when we start to see, here it is, and you said the majority of the people in the city county building are not people of color, then once again we're seeing these discrepancies across the board in terms of how people who look different and act different are being treated.
Well, it seems to me that, and I've spent a lot of time discussing this over 50 years, that when you make a statement of civil disobedience, and I've done this and suffered the consequences more than once, part of it, and part of the statement, is to accept the consequence of the deliberate violation of the law. I don't think that the act of civil disobedience is to be compared to what we're talking about here, which is unsafe behavior, which is not part of an act of civil disobedience. But every time I was arrested, I took the consequences, as were the other people who I was arrested with.
But the consequences didn't affect you the same way that they do people of color. As a non-person of color, they don't affect you the same.
When I got beat, it hurt just as much.